We're all different. We all bring different talents and inclinations and understandings to the Jewish table. But if any of what you do is not standing on the foundation of this sentence, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," love your fellow as yourself, what is it all about? What for? What I'd like to share with you is a very exciting experience that I just had. I just come back fresh from a symposium, a conference with that was organized by COGECO, the Council of Immigrant Community Organizations in Manhattan. This is a not-for-profit that organizes community projects for and builds community with the Russian speaking Jewish community. And incidentally, COGECO and us, Hebrew Learning Circles, we're collaborating on a project we're calling RJ Krug, which is Russian Jewish. Krug is Russian for circle. And we're bringing the Hebrew Learning Circles methodology, the home-hosted education, to that constituency. Today at the conference, it was just incredibly inspiring to hear speakers, particularly David Harris, who is the head of AJC, the American Jewish Committee, an organization that's been around for a whole century, really, and has been very involved with the movement to bring Jews who were basically imprisoned or locked in the former Soviet Union, to bring them to give them freedom and bring the whole movement of let my people go, free the Russian Jews, let them immigrate to wherever they want to. So he spoke very very intensely and very it was deep wisdom and analysis about about anti-Semitism, irrational force in society. Without getting into all the details, he analyzed, he compared, which I've thought of many times, maybe you have too. He compared the slow growing, the creeping anti-Semitism and the erosion of democratic rule in Germany in 1939, and then 1936, 7, 8, 9 into the war, and how there's a lot of comparisons, a lot of signs that here in America right now we're also going through a process that seems very similar. It's sort of a creeping change of norms towards really division, divisiveness, militancy, violence, hate of the other, etc. So obviously there is a silver lining, and I want to share that with you today. We discussed during Lunch and Learn. I suggested I'd like to share with you what I had actually taught. And we focused on the verse in Parshat Kedoshim in Leviticus that says, the second half of verse 18 says, "Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha ani Adonai." And you shall love your fellow human being as you love yourself. I am God. This is God speaking. So, I guess let me start with the punchline. And the punchline is that the only value for Jewish survival and Jewish community building and Jews sticking together and Jews making a contribution, our unique contribution to the society around us, is expressed in this verse. And any kind of discussion of Jewish history or future or the beauties of Judaism, or God forbid the liabilities of being Jewish when we become victims of discrimination and anti-Semitism particularly, which is a really sick brand of discrimination. There's all kinds of racism and all kinds of hatred, but anti-Semitism is really an irrational, intense, religious ethno hatred that really has no basis. So here is the basis, though, in this verse, "Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha," is the basis for Jews, us, organizing as a community and organizing in opposition or in smart, I would say, absorption of anti-Semitism, especially now that it's growing in the world around us, especially in Europe and in here in America. So love your fellow as yourself. And I want to take us through a brief, but I feel elegant and beautiful analysis of this verse. So the question is, what does it mean? What does "Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha," love your fellow as yourself, mean? It may seem obvious, but it's actually not. So, again, what does it mean, love your fellow as yourself? As much as yourself, like yourself, because you love yourself, be good to others because you're good to yourself. It's not, obviously, intuitively, as we read it on its face, it's a positive message of loving, so you can't go wrong there. But as we do, the genius and the beauty of Jewish scholarship is we want to really splice it and get it clear, concise, and really deep. Let's let this hit us, at the point inside where we get excited, inspired, motivated, and invigorated in the direction that spiritual life and Torah life and Jewish life and human life, should be. So I would like to offer the commentary of Hillel the Elder. This is from the Talmud, and the story goes that Hillel the Elder, when he was asked by a Roman, usually in the classical translations, it's translated as a heathen. So a heathen, idol-worshipping Roman, which was the dominant culture of the time and also the political force that ruled the community in Israel at that time. This is the 1st century before the Common Era. Hillel the Elder was the great sage, the leader of the community. And a heathen comes to him in a mocking kind of way, asks Hillel, "Can you tell me the meaning of the entire Torah while I stand on one foot," literally, which means in a nutshell, can you give me a synopsis, summarize the whole Torah in a word or in a sentence? So Hillel, who is known as infinitely patient, compassionate, and loving of all humankind, gently replied to the inquiring Roman and said the entire Torah is encapsulated in a commentary on this verse, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and love your fellow human as yourself. He said it in his commentary was this: do not do unto others that which you would not like others to do unto you. And then he added, all the rest is commentary. Now go study. The wise Hillel the Elder. About 300 years later, in the second century of the Common Era, the great Rabbi Akiva is quoted in the Talmud as saying, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, klal gadol b'Torah." This verse, this principle, is a great foundation of the Torah. So, really, I would say that if I study Torah or you study Torah, or if I engage with Judaism or you engage in Judaism, in any which way, if I become a Jewish nationalist or religious and I observe all the holidays or observe personal mitzvot, if I follow kashrut, eat according to the standards of Jewish law, if I observe the Sabbath, all good things. If I'm a national Jew or a nationalist Jew, and I'm a fervent believer in Israel and defending her borders and defending the Jewish people, if I am a Jewish community builder and an activist, and I do everything just to build community and to create programs and bring culture and education and opportunities to socialize and get together for Jews. If I'm a cultural Jew, I love the food and the art and the comedians and maybe I go to synagogue once a year or twice a year. On the high holidays, I do Passover Seder. All of that is good. All of that is wonderful. Shiv'im panim laTorah, the 70 faces to Torah. Any which way that you observe and any which way that you engage is as holy as the other, in my view, and in the view of Hillel the Elder, I would say. And if you're, to just use another metaphor, if you're one of the 12 tribes, why were there 12 tribes of Israel? Because each tribe was different. Each tribe had a different style, a different emphasis, a different way of engaging Jewishly and contributing to the Jewish zeitgeist, to the whole, right, to the totality. We're all different. We all bring different talents and inclinations and understandings to the Jewish table. But if any of what you do is not standing on the foundation of this sentence, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself, what is it all about? What for? If you're not, through your activism and engagement, you're not both broadcasting, excuse me, if you're not broadcasting that message, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to your children, to your family, to your community, to other people's, and you're not practicing that principle, again, with fellow Jews or with, good willing people from all peoples, what is your engagement all about? You see, this is the foundation. I want to give it one more angle, one more slant, and this is with a beautiful story that Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach told about, or in relation to, the Piazetzer Rebbe. The Piazetzer Rebbe, I want to say something about him. He left us. He was a giant of the 20th century. He was the Rebbe. He was a Hasidic Rebbe who had a very big community in Piazetzna, which is outside of Warsaw. And incidentally, his whole community, including himself, were forcibly relocated to the Warsaw Ghetto, and they all died there during the Ghetto Rebellion in the Holocaust. His writings were recovered from the rubble of the Warsaw Ghetto by an American soldier, and there were a couple of books, manuscripts that are now published. One is Chovat HaTalmidim, the other is I'm sorry, the title is escaping me right now, but some wonderful writings and wonderful commentary on the Torah, which some were written in Ghetto Warsaw during the war. Very inspirational. He was known before the war started, in the earlier days when he was the rabbi of a thriving community in Piazetzna. He was known uniquely for being the Rebbe of the children. And why was that so unique? Because most Rebbes were too busy, too high up there, in rank, as it were, dealing with families, with adults, with, great important matters of the community, and did not necessarily directly tend to the education of children, but not the Piazetzna Rebbe. And this is where I enjoy sharing about him and thinking of him, because he's a role model for me. Because his emphasis on lending his direct influence to the youngest members of the community. And one of the ways he did that was that every Friday night at the synagogue, he would do a special kiddush for the children. He would gather all the children. I heard a number of 500, or I don't know, hundreds, like a large number of children, all ages. And they'd all sit there together, and he would do kiddush with them, and blessing over the wine, and share some Torah. And here's one more vignette about him that I think beautifully summarizes, concludes this foundation, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself. So the story is told by Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, who traveled the world singing concerts and teaching Torah, really, sometimes in disguise, teaching spiritual wisdom while strumming his guitar and playing songs that he composed, and all the while this was all prayer and study in the disguise of a concert. He was an amazing giant of the 20th century, the later 20th century, after the Holocaust. He died in the mid-90s. So Reb Shlomo tells the following story. He was visiting in Israel at the end of a tour and teaching and going back to New York, where he has had a synagogue till today. The Carlebach Synagogue is on 76th Street, I believe, in Manhattan, in West End. And he's walking the streets of Tel Aviv. He's on his way to run some errands and get himself to the Ben Gurion Airport. And he sees a hunchback, an old man, hunched over, bent by, by the years, and with completely white hair and an aged face, wearing the uniform of a municipal employee with a broom, sweeping the street. And Reb Shlomo says there was a light that shone from him, and he just wanted to make contact. And he approached the man and greeted him. "How are you, holy brother?" This unique way he treated any person. Reb Shlomo definitely lived. He treated any person as if it was his own relative. And he asked the man, "Who are you? Where do you live? Where are you from?" And the man told him, "I'm from Piasetzna in Poland, and I survived the Holocaust, and I came here, and now I live in Tel Aviv, and this is what I do. I sweep the streets." So Reb Shlomo was so excited to meet somebody from Piasetzna and said, "Have you ever met the Piasetzna Rebbe? I always, I admire the Piasetzna Rebbe and the stories about him and his Torah and, the books we have from him." And the old man says, "In fact, I studied as a child in the yeshiva of the Piasetzna Rebbe. I was one of his young students, and he saved my life." And so Reb Shlomo asked him, how did that happen? How did he save your life? And the man said, every Friday, at the end of the Kiddush, that the Piasetzna Rebbe would run for the children, he himself, he would, before he would bid us farewell, he would say, "Kinderlach, kids, remember to do a favor for somebody." Every Friday, before he would bid them farewell, he would say, "Kinderlach, kids, remember to do a favor for somebody." And the man continued to explain, when I was in the camps in the Warsaw, in Auschwitz, and I was depressed, and I really did not want to go on living, I heard the voice of the Rebbe in my mind saying, "Do someone a favor." And all I would do is go around and look for people that I could help. So I busied myself helping others, and that's what saved my life. That's why I did not give up. Reb Shlomo was so moved by this man's story, but he was in a rush to get to the airport, and he told the man, can you give me your address and phone number? I have never met, in my whole life, I've been dying to meet somebody who was a Piasetzna Rebbe student, and here you are. I'm so glad to meet you. When I come back from America, my next visit, may I contact you? So the man gave Reb Shlomo his contact information, and lo and behold, Reb Shlomo went back to New York, and a couple months later he came back to Israel on another tour, another engagement, and he looked up the man. Turned out, in the meanwhile, the man had passed away. That is the story. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. All our Judaism, if there's nothing else left, or if we pile customs and observances and mitzvot and faith and philosophy and meaning and engagement and culture and analysis and joy and whatnot, but we do not have that foundation, what is it all about? May we so be blessed. So I left the conference this afternoon really inspired by the activism of Russian Jews, immigrants, and children of immigrants who went through the hardships, the really harrowing hardships of leaving the Soviet Union. This was the next great challenge. By the way, also to acknowledge that the Ethiopian Jews leaving Ethiopia went through the same, just dealing with oppression and just reclaiming their freedom and the freedom to be as humans to dignity and to livelihood and to freedom and their liberty to be Jewish, to be who they are. So this conference of Russian Jews was just so inspiring to see young and older men and women who are engaged in reclaiming this freedom, which is all established upon this one principle: love your fellow as yourself. I'm Rabbi Ruben Modig with Hebrew Learning Circles, as you can see in the beautiful title behind me. We're an innovative Jewish community educational program. Our community is called Makom Halev Community, which is Hebrew for Heart Space Community here in Nyack, New York. If you're in the area, please stop by, drop a note. Love to hear from you. Would love to hear your comments in the space below. Like us, it'll be so appreciated. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Come back for more. We'll be here teaching. We teach in our Cyber Hebrew Learning Circle, Cyber Yeshiva, about 3 times every week. We don't have a regular order schedule at this point, but it's a new endeavor for us. Welcome to our new Cyber Yeshiva. It's a new endeavor, but we will go into more of a schedule that you can anticipate. A little bit Torah, a little bit Kabbalah, a little bit meaning, a little bit identity, and mainly just connecting so we can grow bigger as people, bigger as Jews. With that, shalom for now.